Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
And welcome to Morning Magazine, everyone, for this May 27th, 2020, 10:06 on the clock. And your host, James J. Malouf, here. In part two today, we are going to talk with Julie Stern and Becky from the ODC. We're looking forward to talking with them right now, though. We have in with us Lance Pliml from the chairman of the Wood County Board of Supervisors. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning, James. Thanks for having me in again.
Man, Lance, if I could have you pull into the mic just a little bit. Thank you. I appreciate that. We want to thank also our friend Kevin from the Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being in with us. Always good to see you, Kev. Lance, first off, how are you and yours doing?
Doing well. Our family's doing well, and I think if we go to a broader perspective, I think our county family's doing pretty well. We've been pretty lucky through this whole process, and as you and I just spoke very briefly about before we started, that's part of kind of abiding by the rules that have been put out there and trying to be as safe as we can while still providing that public service.
We were also talking in the pregame here, joking about how there's no way that we can really have a discussion nowadays, no matter what topic we're talking about, without COVID-19, kind of being injected into it, whether we like it or not. I would like to challenge, though, sometime with you to try to see how long we can go before we talk about that. But I do have one thing kind of side off that topic.
That'd be great, because it's been about
yeah. We certainly have we're under new management. We have a new mayor in the city of Wisconsin Rapids, and for people that aren't really a part of that kind of stuff behind the curtains and everything, how does the changeover go for you guys on the board? Is there a lot to do? Is there, especially in a smaller town like this where you may know Shane and that kind of thing? And I'm not necessarily talking about any personal feelings about it or anything, just job wise. The change in the changing of guard.
Yeah, it's always interesting when that happens, and I have had the opportunity, I think, to work with 5 mayors over, a quarter of a century,
Right.
basically a service.
You've been here before.
Yeah, and every one of them, has a little bit different personality, but and we also have Marshfield and the rest of the county.
Right.
But we do work, in a very close symbiotic relationship, because although there are kind of arbitrary, there are actual boundaries, but they're somewhat arbitrary because those services cross lines, and you need to be cooperative. When you get a new mayor, and Mayor Blazer is a new mayor, but he's also been, fairly ensconced in city politics and the inner workings for, quite some time as a clerk and, and then as an alderperson. So he gets the background, but each new mayor has their own personalities. I always want to say first name because we've been on that basis for a long time.
Sure.
But Mayor Blazer and I have, been acquainted for a long time. I think when somebody comes into office for the first time, they probably seek advice from those who have held office in some of the other places, whether they be mayors or county board chairs. And he has been extremely not only interested but cooperative in trying to send the same cohesive message to the community that we have. So in many regards, said, look, you have a health department at the county. We want to follow those guidelines going forward. We don't want to get ahead of the game, but we don't want to be behind it either. So, like I said, each one a little bit different personality. I've found that I've had I'll call it a close relationship with all of those mayors. I don't think we've ever really butted heads on anything. I mean, there might be a particular issue where you see things a little differently, procurement of property, some of those kind of things. But, hey, we're all in this together. And that's, it's not just the mayors. It's those town board chairmen, village presidents. We talk regularly, and you need to be cooperative.
And that cooperation really shows. It shows to us as citizens as well, with that kind of, especially at this point in time where we're in such a flux situation, where things can go one way or another within the hour as far as what's going on in the world today and everything. So it's that much more important why it helps having a cohesive kind of everybody on the same page sort of thing. You guys are all individuals. You have your own thoughts and ideas and everything. But as a unit, you come across on the same page, whether it's the board or not just our board, but like you said, branching out Marshfield and these other areas in Wood County here. Seems like everybody is on the same page.
They are. And as a radio talk show host, I mean, you guys really bring various stations a much probably wider perspective on what's going on than the general public out there. I mean, you're listening to people like myself all day long. You're digging into the issues. You obviously prepare questions ahead of time, and you see it. if you weren't cooperative, if you didn't have those relationships, and it is all about relationships. Who can I call up and get on the phone today to get an answer? And we've worked, like I said, comprehensively across borders to try to have a cohesive message and to try to be transparent and get the information out to the public as quickly as possible. And you're right, it's really difficult at this time to talk about anything other than this because it has, it crosses all borders, it crosses all departments, it's part of the discussion of everything we do, and it's kind of taken over life at this point a little bit while we try to balance that with opening the community back up, which, as we alluded to earlier, is hopefully done safely. We've tried to pound that in to the business community that the last thing we want to do is issue orders. We don't want to close things. We want to have a slow, methodical opening. I've seen good practices, but I've also seen bad practices. And I'm hoping that the general public basically says, I have my own personal awareness. I'm going to be comfortable in whatever environment I decide to go into. If somebody else decides to do something differently, maybe I avoid, those places or those people. My biggest concern is probably in the next, probably from today to the next 7 to 10 days, we had a huge influx of people from around, the Midwest and over the Memorial Day weekend. The governor's order ended, about a week and a half ago, somewhere in that vicinity. So if we are going to have an outbreak somewhere, I'm guessing it's going to happen pretty soon, or else we're going to find out that we really do have much less than 1% of the population infected, and maybe we won't, hopefully, knock on wood, have that situation.
One way or another, we'll find out. We're going to find out one way or another where it goes, and I'm with certainly with you on that. Hopefully, the numbers are lower and all this, and this second wave that we're hearing about, and so many of us are concerned about, isn't nearly as bad. It's one of those subjects where I would love to be, in many ways, proven wrong in some ways. I hope the numbers aren't nearly good, are low, and all these kind of things. We don't want an influx. We don't want to be, but we have to be smart about this, especially when it's something that we don't know everything about. Our smartest minds in the world, the people that go to school for this, the people that this is what they do for a living, they've been doing for 30, 40 years, are still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. That's how a virus works. That's how it is. The cold at one point was like that back in the day. So it takes time. It takes patience. One of the things that I think you hit on so well, Lance, and you've brought this up kind of before, but with other topics, there's a parenting kind of thing here where you guys, you set your laws, you do what you can, you take all the advice and information you can, whether it's from the Wood County Board, it is businesses, different chairman members that you talk to, board members that you talk with, all of you guys bring this all together and you come up with your rules or laws. And as citizens, it's on us then to take care of our own responsibilities, to take care of our own backyard. We've got to handle things smartly, however that is, whether you're going out in public or not, and all those kind of things. There is some personal responsibility that has to take place as citizens that we all have to, and not be so quick to point the finger necessarily. Well, they're not doing this right. They're not doing that right. Well, what are you doing? What are you doing as a citizen to make things better, or to add to things, or to help things, keep things in line, whatever you have?
We should switch chairs, because I couldn't have said that any better. That's really, that's exactly what we're looking for, is that, it's personal responsibility. It's assessing the amount of risk, you're willing to take. I just tell people, be as smart as you can out there, try to avoid the obvious situation, but don't be fearful at the same time. We work every day with our health department. Sue Comferman, as our director, has done a tremendous job. Our emergency management under Steve Cruiser, we're supplying PPEs to a little over 160 different medical facilities throughout the county. And, who would have thought there's 160 medical facilities, including nursing homes across the county? Yeah. That's a lot of masks. It's a lot of PPEs. We have to coordinate that every day. And, we're certainly trying to focus our efforts on those most vulnerable first. Yeah. I think we try to keep this virus, this pandemic, is not partisan. It affects everybody. Right. And, so when I use an example, it's not meant to be partisan, but, I think Florida, for instance, did a great job protecting those seniors who are most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. We're trying to do the same thing. You focus there as effort. You have less effort probably in some of those communities that are less likely to suffer the consequences. But the biggest thing, and we touched on this, it's conversational, but the question I get asked every day is, so what's going to happen tomorrow? And I'll tell you what, I would be lying to you if I said I have any idea what's going to happen tomorrow. We deal with it on a minute by minute, day by day basis. Anybody on TV, all these pundits that tell you they know what's going to happen tomorrow, they don't.
No.
They're making the best educated guess they can with the information they have at hand, typically based on previous epidemics or pandemics we've had, dealing, like you said, whether it be the common cold, H1N1, Ebola, SARS, you name it. We pull the information together and we do the best we can. From a government perspective, we probably try to err on the side of caution to some extent because we know we don't have the capacity to deal with everything.
Right.
And then from a county perspective, we have those departments that need to be up and operating. So maybe we're extremely careful. You can't shut down the dispatch center. You kind of like, if you make a phone call and you need an ambulance, you'd probably like to know that somebody's going to answer the phone and one's going to show up.
Yeah.
Sheriff's Department, jails, Edgewater Haven, our nursing facilities, up at Norwood or our Northwood County Annex. Those are going to be the last to open. We're going to be extremely careful there. Other departments within the county, some are open already, generally speaking, June 1st for the rest of them. Again, in a controlled environment. Some may require masks when you come in. They may limit the number of people in offices. We're going to follow the advice of our health department.
It's interesting. There's a couple of things that come to mind with what you've said there, Lance, because one of the things that came to mind early in this process when we were talking about the balancing of the American soul over the American dollar and opening up the doors so we can get our economy back, and the worry of losing a lot of our population because of opening our doors too early. My dad brought this up where any of us who grew up poor understand what it's like to have to balance, I need this, but I need bread. And I only have $2. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to get gas or am I going to get bread? These kind of balance, these kind of challenges that we have. It's a gray area. There's no perfect answer. There's no right answer of this. And that perspective is going to take you a lot farther when going forward in this, and understanding that we're not just as citizens, we're balancing this. You in your position and other people in these positions throughout the whole country are balancing this, are trying to figure this out. And one of the things you brought up before, too, as far as anybody, the pundit kind of thing, is this one really aggravates me. And it isn't, again, it's not a partisan thing. This is all the channels that have a agenda and that aren't bringing you just facts. That anyone that has opinion-based or opinion in their work is coming from that angle. This is what you do. This is going to work. Don't nobody know. There are scientists right now that are telling you that they don't know exactly what to do here. They know certain things, certainly. And what they know, they're letting us know. But Kev may be able to relate to this because I know he watches the draft too. But every year during the NFL draft afterwards, you get all the talking heads come out and tell you who was a great draft pick, who did a great job in the draft and all this, when really, realistically, there's no way we can know for the next 3 or 4 years how these kids are going to do. They're rookies. They haven't even played a game yet. And even if they have a great rookie year, it doesn't mean they're going to have a great career. So we don't know right now. There's none of the pundits, none of these people, and that's okay. It's not, I understand it's frustrating, we want answers, but it's okay that we're in this gray area because we're figuring it out together. And if we stick together through this, we're going to come out the other side of this all right. Yeah,
that's a great analogy. Everybody probably wishes they drafted Tom Brady, way back when everybody had several cracks at it. We just don't know. We're moving forward. Like I said, we're following advice. You made a comment before. Your dad said, well, as you turn out, dads are usually right. The one thing, and I'll go back to football, the current crisis, if you listen to the news everywhere, is always the worst ever. Mm-hmm. And I'll relate this to football. Right now you hear, especially kids, this is not my personal opinion, but Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback ever to play for the Packers. They're going, but they never saw Brett Favre.
Right.
And then those who saw Brett Favre said, geez, Brett Favre was the greatest quarterback. They forgot about a guy named Bart Starr who happened to win a championship about every single year. Mm-hmm. And so it's always a perspective that tends to be more current. You don't look back. When I hear people say times have never been this bad, they're wrong. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I can also tell you when they say it'll never get back to normal. Yes, it will. Mm-hmm. When I hear people on TV saying, we'll never shake hands again, we'll never hug anybody, it will get better. I can't tell you when,
right.
But it's going to happen, whether that be through the development of treatments, through the development of vaccines, or just the virus itself eventually, working its way through the population and,
yeah.
It's going to happen.
Right.
I just can't tell you when. And that's the That's the $1 million, $10 million question, and everybody's working on it. The one thing I've gotten as I've had conversations, whether it be at the state level or the federal level, is nothing has ever been brought to bear this quickly in working to combat a virus or a disease. I mean, we're at light speed right now around the world, and I think we're going to have a treatment, probably a vaccine to this quicker than anybody probably would have imagined.
Right.
But again, I don't know if that's next month, 6 months, or a year, but it's still light speed. So, I say, keep the faith. It's going to happen. And, when you're out there in the community, be safe.
And keep reminding yourselves out there, too, anybody struggling with this, that there is nothing stronger in the universe than the human spirit. We have... You brought up the perspective, sort of, as far as looking back and times being what they are. Look at what we have done as human beings, what we have survived as human beings. You go back to Pangea, when this continent was all connected and everything. There's some, people in a certain part of the world, they're there and it gets cold. And like, wait, this is way too cold. Let's move. So they move and they go to this place. And then they move, it's too hot there. They go to this place. And before you know it, we've got human beings around the whole world. We're adaptive. This is what we've done from the very beginning. We will adapt. We will survive this, and we'll get back to whatever the norm is then. And to think some of these things aren't going to happen, like as far as shaking hands or hugging or anything. We're human creatures. We're gonna get back to that eventually. It's just a matter of the time frame. We don't know, and understanding that, and all of us kind of being on the same page with that, really, and understanding it.
And, and it's all balance, and that need to survive, to provide housing, to eat, probably does take precedent over, I'm going to go out without a mask on. I certainly get it. The concern I have locally is, we know we're going to have a huge hole budgetarily because of the sales tax hole we're in right now, and that money will not be. You can't spend yesterday's money tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. We'll never make that up. We have revenue sources that are drying up, but I think where it's tougher is the small business out there. Somebody says, well, when they reopen, I came from that small business background. I don't know that a lot of them will have the opportunity to reopen.
Yeah.
Some of these people save money for 10, 20 years before they could open the doors. Yeah. And it's gone away quickly. And small business people are usually extremely concerned about their employees. They tend to take care of them first. Yeah. They do everything they can, and sometimes to the detriment of their own financial well-being. So my concern is when this is over, it's not going to be, we're done, we have a vaccine, and it's business back to normal. My gut feeling is we're going to have some empty storefronts. We're going to have to deal with that. That's going to come back rather slowly. And, so as the partisan part comes into this, the quicker you can open the doors, the better. But then how do you do that, with that eye to the future and that eye to the epidemic, and how do we minimize that? Because, I always laugh when somebody says, you can't put a value on life. Well, you can't. I mean, especially if it's your family. I can't assign a dollar value. But at the end of the day, if you lost, I'm being ridiculous, but if you lost 10,000 jobs, that's also a disaster to a community.
Right.
And I don't know how you recover there either. So, like I said, it's personal responsibility. It's a balance you want to strike, both morally, and it is a moral one too. My biggest concern is that I bring, even if I'm asymptomatic, bring that virus into my own household. My parents are, in their upper 80s, have had some health issues. I don't want to bring it home. That concerns me. So I'm probably more careful around parents in that more vulnerable community than I am if I'm out with my buddies.
Right.
I can honestly tell you, I went out yesterday afternoon and I played 9 holes of golf. Now, wasn't in a cart. We walked separately, but we were out in the community. I didn't have a mask on. I felt safe. Again, there were people on the golf course that had a mask on. I would not tell anybody not to. I don't think it's a bad idea.
Right.
But again, whatever you're personally comfortable with an eye to the community.
Yes, it's that balance. I firmly believe that everybody out there in the listenership is smart enough and capable to have 2 thoughts in their head at once, and 2 things at once in their head, and they may contradict, but they make sense. And we're doing this right now on a daily basis, where we are balancing this. I have to go out and I have to do these things, or I want to go out and do a round of golf, and at the same time keep my community safe, keep my friends safe, keep my family safe, keep strangers safe. and walking that balance and taking that personal responsibility, like you said there. Maybe the most important question I'm going to ask you today, Lance, how did you do on the course?
I actually played pretty well yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, first time out, I always say, how do you hit every ball in the fairway the first time out, and then 10 rounds from now, you're spraying the ball left and right.
Right,
But
right.
I don't know. I think you start thinking about it later.
Sure.
The first time out, you just hit the ball. And
Golf's one of those games,
and go.
yeah.
We were lucky. I had one of the guys I played with. It was about 3 o'clock, and it was pouring. He said, I think there's a break in the radar here between 3:30 and 5:30. Let's give it a shot. And I'll be darned if we, as we finished the first hole, the sun came out, and I went from how wet am I going to get to how sunburnt am I going to
Sure,
get? And, and that's what we're dealing with kind of every day in the community.
That's
I don't know
Midwest
what's
weather.
happening in the next 2 hours.
The Midwest weather we've all grown up with, or most of us have grown up with. Yeah, you're right. That's the way the community, the news is right now. Give it 5 seconds and it might change. I mean, it's just the way it is. And good to hear too. Not only for your own mental health and everything, getting out there and doing that, but that it's people that you saw others out there, and the people are living, because there is that balance we have to walk here, certainly, but no, we don't want anybody living afraid. That's a different thing. There's a difference of being informed and being smart, and then being afraid. We don't want to scare anybody. We're not trying to freak anybody out or anything like that. It's just being aware and just being smart, handling things right.
Yeah, it's a change in life. Activities have been either delayed or canceled. I'm interested to see what new activities will evolve from some of the cancellations. If I planned on going to Cranberry Blossom Festival and that's what I did that weekend, or the 4th of July, how are we going to evolve? What's going to happen next? My heart really does go out, like I said, to those small business people, those that, like you said, are on the cusp of financial insecurity. But the ones that I guess I'd really like to speak to out there are those, in my mind, especially those high school seniors. You had that whole year planned, whether it was athletic activities, graduation, those last times you were going to get together with friends before you all went different directions to college. And that is a real exciting time in your life. It's a time that typically, even at my age, I don't look back to that much the end of college or things like that, but you look back to who was I with, at graduation, those last few days. And those people have been deprived to a great extent of that opportunity, and I'm hoping they find ways. I'm hoping that things open up sooner rather than later, and that they can get back to normal. Because I've watched those people, and I see the internal struggle that some of them have as how we're going to move forward. So congratulations to those that are graduating, and hopefully life gets back to normal sooner rather than later for you.
Lance, we appreciate the time with you as always. Is there anything you wanted to get to before we let you go?
No, I guess the only thing I'd touch on is, our county offices have always been open. They've been open by appointment, generally speaking. Our courthouse has been open. The courtrooms will probably open later than almost anything else, and that's partly because you really can't put people in jury boxes. I imagine if you put up all the plexiglass and all the social they'd probably be suffering from claustrophobia.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, for the most part, county offices, other than those nursing homes and stuff, will be open on the 1st. So call ahead of time and check, but we're there to serve you.
Really always appreciate the time. Always insightful and a fun conversation with you, Lance. We look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Thanks, James.
Again, a big thank you to Lance Pliml, chairman of the Will County Board of Supervisors, and a very big thank you to Kevin and our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for joining us. Always good to see you guys. We will be back with more Morning Magazine coming up. We're going to talk with Julie and Becky from the ODC here on AM 1320 WFHR.